Welcome to We Are Soccer. Today we're talking to Soccer Syndicate scout and director Brooks Laimbeer. Brooks, we want to talk about what the Soccer Syndicate does, how you guys go about scouting and ranking kids, who some of your clients are. Hopefully you're okay to us asking some questions and finding out a little bit more about what you and your company does.
Yeah, no, of course. We're always willing to talk about it. I mean, just some of the owners, Matt and Scott, have kind of been on other podcasts and other kind of talk shows to talk about the Soccer Syndicate. So I'm very happy to share what we do and what the other guys do and the services we offer our clients. And can't talk probably specifically about every client we work with. But I can at least give as much detail as I can. So willing to share, just fire away, man. Fire away with the questions.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. All right. First off, so the Soccer Syndicate, you guys are a soccer only scouting. You go out and scout players kind of at a young age. Give us a quick overview. I know you said it's got two owners and then there's yourself and one or two other scouts and directors, but give us a quick overview on how it started and kind of what you guys do. Do you focus on men or boys and girls soccer? Give us the overview, man.
Yeah. So just kind of how the company formed. The two owners, Matt Martin and Scott Resendez. So Matt Martin retired from Air Force for a lot of years. He was stationed over in Europe and such. He was always a soccer guy, but that's where he kind of really fell in love with the game. And Matt took a course, the same one I did through Sports Management Worldwide. Which they have a scouting course, scouting and soccer management. And one of the people teaching the class kind of got him into the profession of scouting. So Matt started with New York Red Bull. Then he moved on to Sporting KC, and that's where I think him and Scott had met. Scott Resendez, the other owner, had met before Sporting KC, but that's where him and Scott worked together. Along with a couple of our other scouts, Andre Sherrard and Joe Museri, and a few other guys, Joe Yusunis, who lives out in San Diego, who we still work with, and doesn't do as much now, but he does a lot more in the youth game. And then Matt went out to then Portland, which then he was 1 year in, and that's when I took, after graduating from Michigan State, I took the SMWW scouting class again, or not again, but for the first time I took it, and that's where I met Matt, and that's where I kind of met Matt, and I joined the Portland Timbers with Andre and Joe and Joey and some other scouts, and then Matt and a few other guys also moved on to work for RSL. So that was kind of Matt's journey, and then but honestly, Scott and Matt from early on had this idea of, why work for one team when we can share, when we can, work with multiple teams and use the same information we're providing one team to help, to help teams identify players in the collegiate system, and why not in the youth system and then the lower division pro system as well, to add on, because college was the main thing they were scouting. That's the main thing a lot of scouts are hired for by MLS teams is to scout college soccer, because they have to prepare for the draft. And as we know, that the college game, I guess the kind of the need for the college player has dropped a bit. The MLS, when it first began, I mean, it was all college guys, and that's kind of slowly really shifted from the rosters not as having many college players starting or making the 18. There's only so many that make MLS rosters now. So it's changed a lot. And that's where we do, that's why we do youth, we do college soccer, and we do lower division pro. Now, Scott Resendez, just to do a little synopsis of his story. Scott helped start the MLS Players Union. He was a GM of two USL teams, the Wilmington Hammerheads, as well as the OKC Energy. And again, as I mentioned, he was a scout for Sporting Kansas City with Matt. And then even when Matt left, Scott stayed, and he still did stuff with Sporting KC. So obviously Scott knows like Peter Vermees very well, Mike Jacobs. And he knows a lot of other people throughout MLS and USL, and has great connections. So it's two guys with great connections that started this company. And our objective is, as a company, is to be affordable for teams that need a scouting network. Because usually most scouting networks for MLS teams, let's just take MLS for example, is
Mhm.
usually, if they have the funds to do it, is, one main scout, maybe two, and then kind of per diem that they'll hire, they'll throw money to like college coaches. They may throw money to other guys that they may know in certain areas of the country to
Mhm.
go watch some games, maybe a per diem basis. It may be, X amount of money per month. It's not a salary job if it's outside of like a head scouting director role. Um, so there's not a lot of whole budget in it. But we figured, hey, why not pay a company like us where you have 5, 6 main guys, and then we also have other scouts that help us as well. There's a total of about 15 scouts in the staff, based around the country to go watch college soccer, youth soccer, and lower division pro soccer. And you just get just as much information for paying, one scout, for a salary as you would, multiple scouts. So it's helping, within a team's budget like that. That's our objective. And you get just as good information because of our database, especially in the collegiate game, is so in depth with so much knowledge and reports on players and grades and from all the years we've watched guys, and then us getting into the youth game since the company started the past 3 years, has grown tremendously. And then with Scott working in the lower division pro game, and then all of us watching it on on ESPN Plus, and it being available now on on like I said, ESPN Plus, it's grown. So that's the objective, is to contract with teams to help them, not overcharge them, a ton of money for information, but to work within a budget. um and to help teams just identify players in this country, because there are a lot of good players that just get misidentified, whether it's internationals and Americans in the collegiate system, youth players not playing for MLS academies that live in the middle of nowhere. They could live in the middle of nowhere in Michigan, and they just don't have the access to play for a big club. They can only do ODP, or they can only play for the local club, and maybe they only, maybe at a younger age they get the state cup, and I can go watch them and identify them. But unfortunately, mom and dad just don't have a lot of money, or maybe going down somewhere in the Detroit area, watching pickup soccer somewhere where I know a lot of kids, younger kids go play pickup soccer and such. That's where I'd like to eventually do more of as well, outside of scouting the youth club game, but and MLS Next. But yeah, so that's the objective, is to identify players in this country that get misidentified, because people just don't put enough money into it, unfortunately, and there's not enough people out and about getting out there and watching games live.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys, the Soccer Syndicate, has clients who are MLS, USL, and NISA, correct? So I mean, those are
Yep.
the highest levels of soccer that in this country. So you guys are at the top level, which is great to see. Now,
Yep.
you specifically, Brooks, where do you focus on? What do you go and watch a lot of? Are you watching a lot of MLS Next? Are you watching a lot of college games yourself? What do you specifically go and what type of games do you go watch?
Yeah, so I was primarily with the Timbers, very college based, and even in the first year and a half of the Soccer Syndicate doing college soccer. Recently, I've really gotten heavily into the youth scouting, so MLS Next. I need to get, there's more ECNL teams now, kind of clubs switching, playing their top tier teams that aren't in MLS Next in the ECNL. So to go watch ECNL soccer, um, watching, going in May and June to watch, Michigan State Cup, to watch the teams that are in neither of those competitions, particularly, you're going to watch the 13s, 12s, 14s in the age groups, just to make sure you identify the right players. I've been very fortunate. I've gotten to work with ODP, to be an evaluator, slash like assistant coach, the past couple summers. And I've kind of had an extension this year. So I work with the 2008 boys, at ODP, and I thank Mark Zathi for that, and the other people at the state office for allowing me to do that. because it's an important. There's some,
Yeah.
again, ODP is a great area. There's some kids just they can't afford MLS Next. ODP is kind of the thing they can do to get out and play against better competition and make it to state, regional, and then national camp possibly, and get identified. So you're looking at other different areas, and obviously I get out to training sessions with Aaron Bird at Next Level with the kids he trains, so we keep in contact.
Mhm.
Um, and again, I like I said, I love to find out where a lot of kids pick up soccer in certain areas of the state and just head out there. And if there's a good mixture of kids, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, even older, younger adults that jump in and play, and it's a mixture of players. That's a great environment to go watch a kid in,
Yeah.
and identify a kid in that area. So that's what we're looking for. I mean, those undiscovered kids that, like I said, can't afford to play club soccer because it's so expensive, they need someone out there to identify them and give them a chance. So
What are you looking at when you go watch a U13, U14 boys game? What are you specifically looking for? Obviously, I'm assuming a lot of the games you go to, the big name players, the stud on each team. But are you looking at the other players? What are you specific? Are you looking to see if they've got that work ethic? Are you looking to see if they've got that soccer brain? Are they just an athlete? Can they switch positions? Are those things you're looking at? Give me a little bit more in depth. What are you looking for, and how are you grading kids?
yeah, so definitely all of the above to what you said. But let's kind of get that into more detail. So typically what I do is I always like to go in blind into games. I don't like to read if there's stats. I don't like to read stats. I try not to ask questions, with parents beforehand or whatever, or coaches, or, I don't want people telling me this is the kid and he's so good. And then, the kid has a terrible game, and I don't like to go in with expectations. I very much just like to go in blind and just how do they play? I'm the guy sitting in a chair at the halfway line on the parent's side with the notebook. Let's see if the kids understand, this is unusual for a person to do this. He must be here for some reason. Let's see if the kids pick up their game and want to play a good game of football that day. So
Yeah.
you'd be surprised at how many kids don't notice that, or I can see the intensity doesn't change from when they start to warm up for the game to when they actually play in the game. So
Mm.
so yeah, for me, I'm looking for consistency in players. I think that's the biggest thing is, if I watch you from one game to the next and then take a couple weeks off and then watch you again, are you still that same player? Have you improved? Have you done more? And are you that competitive player that wants to have a champion mentality and to win? Um, uh, and not, and I don't want to say, I don't think win's a good word, just to compete, to
Right.
challenge and compete.
Right.
Because like we kind of talked before when we talked about on the show is I really don't care what the score is of a game is at the end of the day.
Right.
Scores mean nothing to me. It doesn't mean you're not a bad player if you're on a team that loses 5-0, but you're working your butt off the whole time. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there are just some mistakes that happen. Some levels went down a bit after certain mistakes were made by certain people, by certain players. And because as the player that wants to compete, you can't do anything about that. Unfortunately, it's
Right.
it's the players within themselves that have to pick themselves up and be competitive again. So I'm looking for consistent play from a player. Can they pass and receive? Do they have a good soccer IQ? Do they work? Do they defend? And I'm talking about when they defending, not just shifting back and forth and moving and acting like you're doing something. I'm talking about getting stuck in, cutting off passing lanes, pressing when you need to, on set pieces and corners, getting in there and scuffle, getting up and trying to head
Mm.
the ball, attempts at making challenges at certain things. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people to get stuck in and play. Like, sometimes in MLS next matches, they get so possession oriented,
Mhm.
and things go back and forth and in, and there's kids that don't read the game and get, they're like, and I don't want players to go through players 2-footed into the back of like that. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm looking for. I'm looking
Right.
for players that are going to compete the right way. They're going to work hard, and they're not going to give up, just because they make one or two mistakes. Like
Sure.
those are the two biggest things I'm looking for. Then the rest with the technical part, your soccer IQ, your positioning, And you're looking over that with the span. And I'll tell you this, and for the viewers is, it's never going to be one game and I'm going to write your son off, like, and again, like get back to, we don't do the women's side. It's a lot to do the women's and girls side. We've been approached by people say, hey, do you do the women's side? Like we said, yeah, like if people are, we would be interested in doing that. If people that can help us, that you guys, another branch wants to start off and do women's scouting for us, for sure. We're not opposed to not doing the women's and girls game. It's just so much to try to handle women's and men's and women's and boys and girls soccer. It's a lot of data and information, and we're not a huge group at the moment, as we're still expanding. So, but I'm just looking. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not, there's no secret to it. It's just having a champion mentality in a player and a work ethic, and them just doing the basic things and progressing and developing as a player. I don't care, again, about scores. I don't care if you're a college player and you're Big Ten freshman of the year or your first team all Big Ten. Some kids live on those, oh my God, I did this. Well, wonderful. You have one good year, play like that the next year.
Right.
Can you do it? I see a lot of kids in their, in their collegiate years, their freshman, sophomore, they go from freshman, good year, sophomore, not bad, and they plateau in their junior and senior year. Again, be consistent, play consistent. Can you up your level? Can you up your level when I watch you as a collegiate player playing in USL 2 for Oakland County, AFC Ann Arbor, Flint City Bucks, whoever you're going to play for, Midwest United, which is now, was Grand Rapids Football Club. That's what I'm looking for, consistent play. Because how can I trust you as a scout if I'm going to give information to a team, a client of ours? And I know this is a question I think we've talked about is, who do you work with? So it could be a head coach. It could be a technical director. It could be the director of scouting. It's usually, for the big MLS teams, it's usually not the GM. Usually the GM kind of has like the assistant GM or the technical director work with us. For the smaller teams, though, like the USL Championship or the USL League One teams, very much so. It could be, an owner that has multiple positions within the club that wants to get involved with, working with us. We'll give them information as well. But yeah, you're looking for, again, being consistent player, and having good attitude and such. So, like those are some of the things I think, not to drag on too much, but the thing I look for, and then just some of the information for the viewers that, that are watching.
Well, I can tell you what we've been talking about here is drastically different from, 10, 15 years ago. Obviously I've been out of the soccer game, or the youth game for 20 odd years now, but there was nothing like this ever around. And it used to be ODP was where the good players had to go and play, and if you weren't part of ODP, you got kind of left off. And we always knew some of the best players got left off of ODP, just because they either didn't perform well, the coaches didn't know them. Nowadays it's great to see that there are other things out there, like you're going to youth games, you're going to pickup games, you're going to a lot of different pieces. You're still going to ODP, but there's a lot of other avenues for players these days. And I know it's been harked on a little bit that college sometimes isn't the best route to go. Clearly what you're telling me is, though, that's still a route. You guys, the Soccer Syndicate, yourself and the people who work at the Soccer Syndicate are still looking at the college level. It's still a place that a player can get to and still go pro afterwards, or even during his college career. So no avenue was ever cut off, is what it sounds like. What I'd really to say is, or ask is, you guys have, as a company, you have meetings with a general manager or some coaches that we won't mention on the air here, but in those meetings, they're your client. They have to trust you. And if you're going to put a kid and say, listen, this kid can make it and he should be drafted, or he should be brought in as a free agent and signed a contract, obviously that relationship and trust have to be built up. Does it take time, or do they come in? Do they know right off the bat that you guys know what you're doing? And do they have lists themselves that they can compare against? How do those meetings usually go for you guys?